Hi everyone and welcome back to the Chemist Couple podcast with Jess and Lee. This week we're going to be talking about calories. So we're going to be discussing what is a calorie, whether they're accurate, whether we should count calories in order to track our fitness goals, the benefits and also the downsides of tracking calories. But before we start, we just wanted to thank all of the people who've watched us over the last couple of weeks. So we've had a little bit of an influx, haven't we, of people coming to the channel. But if anyone is watching this and haven't subscribed yet, then please do, just because it helps us a lot. And also, it just means that we can continue to make videos like this. And also, if anybody who is watching thinks that's someone that they know may benefit from whatever we're saying, also pass this podcast on to them. But yeah, just thanks so much for everyone who has listened so far. So let's get into it.
Come on.
So calories, it's something that we discuss a lot, isn't it?
It is. I mean, it's not something that I've ever followed. I've done it once for an Instagram post just so people knew what I was eating, but in terms of actually using them and adhering to a calorie count, I've never done that. Whereas when I first met you, you were really focused on calories,
Yeah,
how much you ate, how much you worked out. You depended upon this number and this numerical value that the body is just an input and an output.
Yeah. So what is a calorie? I think that's probably the best place to start.
We were and ahhing whether to put this in, because the actual definition is a calorie, what we use for food, is different to a calorie, what we use in medicine. Mm-hmm. So a calorie is basically 1,000 times smaller than the one that we use in food. But it's the energy required to heat a kilogram of water by 1 degree. Mm-hmm. So in the context of food, it's basically the energy released per food group once burned. Mm-hmm. So that's when it's used in the body as well. How much can we get from it?
Yeah.
But it's not as simple as that.
No. It's
in terms of how we can extract the energy, and is food more than just a numerical value on energy?
Yeah. So like we found out over recent months is that food is a very complex matrix. It has a complex matrix, doesn't it? So like you say, it's not just a case of energy in versus energy out. So that's probably a term that you've heard a lot, especially on social media, where it's, in order to lose weight or maintain weight, you either need to burn more calories than you consume, or eat the same amount of calories than what you're burning to maintain weight, and then obviously burn less calories than what you're eating to put weight on or put muscle on or whatever. So the social media is very much a place where calorie counting is at the forefront of fitness, isn't it? And I think, like you say, I definitely counted calories, I'd say, for about 10 years.
Why did you start?
Why did I start? I think it was, well, actually, if you look at calorie counting, it's probably the most popular diet or way to track your food, really, in the world.
I'd agree with that.
And so it was more of a case of just everybody else around me was doing it. I also had downloaded an app, MyFitnessPal. Probably a lot of people are familiar with that. I think it had just come out actually around the time when I was about 16 or 17, which was when I really started to track calories. So yeah, it was just an easy way for me to be able to sort of have an idea about what I was eating. Obviously around the age of 16 as a young girl, you're more conscious of your weight. And so that was the reason why I started doing it. And it was just the thing, like I say, that everybody else was doing it. So I just thought that was the best way.
So you just went along with it because a lot of people were doing it, as opposed to, well, mind you, you're young, you probably didn't look into it too much.
No, I don't remember a reason for why I did it. I just presume that it was that, because nothing really springs to mind. But yeah, I just know a lot of people around me were doing it at the time, so it's probably just something that I was like, oh, okay, well, if everyone else is doing it, I will too.
I'm just going to ask you a lot of questions, because I think a lot of people are going to relate to it in terms of they do it for certain reasons. They may not know why they done it in the first place. Did you gain any benefits from calorie counting?
I think I did, in terms of I have a better understanding about nutrition, I think, and macronutrients. So if you're thinking about macronutrients in terms of like protein, carbs and fat, so like I was saying before with my MyFitnessPal, it breaks it down into not just calories but also macronutrients. So the calorie side of things, yes, like I have an idea now of the calorie content of some foods. We will go into the fact that is that correct or not, it may not be. But so it was more of a case of just being more aware. I think, honestly, looking back, it's been probably detrimental to actually me achieving my goals, and this is what we will discuss in the podcast, because I think that I was it just consumed me, and I was so focused, like you say, just on the numbers, that I was eating probably, like my diet has never been really bad, but it definitely could have been better. And I would, for instance, swap out things like an avocado. I would deem that as like really bad for you because it was obviously high in calories, or olive oil, it was bad for you. And then I'd swap it out for things like, you know, the 0 calorie spray, which, you know, it's just really not good for you. Like, it's just full of chemicals. I don't even know what's in it. But because there was 0 calories in that versus maybe like 300 calories in like a little bit of olive oil, then I thought that was better for my health, or not even for my health, but just for my goals at the time.
And that's a trend on social media. A lot of people are swapping out these healthier alternatives, and really it's just low sugar, no nutritional density to it. It's just, it's got a lower energy output from what they can sort of calculate. That's it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are doing that, saying it's more healthy if you have lower calories, when you just alluded to MyFitnessPal or whatever tracker you were using, focus on calories and the main macronutrients. But food is more than the sum of 3 macronutrients.
It is.
It's polyphenols, minerals, vitamins, etc.
Yeah.
As we'll get into. Okay. So did you feel like you've gained a negative relationship now that you've just focused on food as a numerical value? If I have that, that's 1,500 calories.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, to be honest, I think I've been lucky in the sense that I didn't let it completely consume me, where I know that some people may let it, where that's all they think about, and they have to be in a calorie deficit. And it, you know, I was never like that. I was just aware of it. So in that sense, it, you know, it wasn't too detrimental. Like, obviously it was in terms of my health, or like on the inside, because I wasn't eating optimally for my body. But I think where I went wrong, or where it hindered me the most, was in exercise. So if you remember when I first met you, the only type of exercise that I really did was hit. Yeah. And the reason for that was because I had an Apple Watch at the time, and it was the highest amount of calories that you would burn in a session. And if I didn't come out of the gym literally dripping in sweat, do you remember when I used to do that? Yeah. Then I didn't feel like I'd done a workout, like there was no point. And I remember you, obviously, I'd weightlifted a lot, and you'd say to me, you know, come and do a session with me. And I'd think, and the reason why I didn't do it was because I was like, well, I'm not going to burn as many calories doing that. And it's such a negative way to think about things, because actually, like we know, if you build muscle and you have more muscle mass, it's more metabolically active, and so your BMR, so your basal metabolic rate, will go up, and so you'll just burn more calories when you're just sitting at rest, which is something that I've obviously figured out now, because I have weight trained for the last year, and yeah, but that's probably the most detrimental. So it wasn't the counting calories part, it was the fact that it was the relationship like I had around calories and exercise that was the most detrimental.
Yeah, I don't think you're the only person who's ever had that.
No,
I think a lot of people.
Yeah, of course, and I think that's why we wanted to do this podcast, because probably most people can relate to that. That it's like I say, it's the most commonly used diet or like way of leading a lifestyle is by counting calories. It's been, I think it was like popularized about 100 years ago, so it's been around for 100 years. And
that's one thing I want to bring up. If it is working for other people and they're healthy and all the biomarkers are down, I'm not deterring people away from it. It's just, these are my opinions, your opinions as well.
Yeah, so I think,
in terms of calorie counting.
Yeah, I think maybe we should then discuss what do we think the benefits are of it then, and then we'll go on to we can talk about then what the negative points are.
I think the benefits are that if you know the energy density of a food, you can sort of be wary. If you go into a meal, you might avoid consuming a large proportion of these high energy dense foods. Yeah. But I think there's not many benefits for me apart from that. Yeah. I don't think I ever started calorie counting because of where I was physically. I don't think I've never had a high body fat percentage, so I've never really looked at the need to control anything. Whatever I was doing at the time, luckily enough, my parents were cooking really high protein, healthy meals just by chance, whole foods, and then I just didn't have the need to calorie count. And then when I was weightlifting, doing football, all them things, I think the image was fine for me. Yeah. Whereas I think it's a bit different for women or people who've, you know, had weight problems. Yeah. I think there is a means to try and latch onto something and maybe identify a cause. And I agree with people who do that. Yeah. But I don't agree with the whole science behind it and the relationship now going forward.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that it's beneficial to people who may be really overweight, and so actually by cutting down the amount of calories that you are consuming, you will lose weight, because fundamentally that it is correct that if you burn more calories or you expend more calories than what you intake, then you will lose weight. It's just that we don't know.
The body isn't as straightforward.
It's not, and so it's not about just inputting something and then you'll get an output. It's inputting something and then there's so many things that go on and then you get the output. So yeah, okay, so negatives of...
I've got more negatives than positives for this. I think it creates a negative relationship with food. Like you said, you eat or you do certain activities to sort of combat what you've consumed. I think there's this idea, which I'll go into in a minute, of how accurate are the calories? Is it a true representation of what's in that food? And then do you extract the energy that you're meant to from that food? Are all the fitness trackers as accurate as what they're saying? Are these BMR calculations? Again, there's so many variables, in my opinion, that need to align for this to be correct.
Yeah.
And then, like we went from the beginning, it's mainly calories. Food is more than calories. Food, you need all these other micronutrients to nourish chemical reactions within the body. And that's the difference. And I was trying to come up with analogies because I always do it off camera, but I don't want to do it on camera. But I think if you look at a company and a boss, if you just give money to your workers, they will do the job. And that's what I would treat calories as. It's just given an input and an output. That's it. But if you nurture them and you take them on trips away, etc., and make them feel a part of the company, then you will get more in return. And that's what I think when you have a whole food diet, it's doing all the things that you don't necessarily see on paper. Yeah. And I think that's the best analogy I can come up with.
Yeah, no, that is a good one. And I agree that, we don't know the true value of a calorie. So like you were just saying then that you were going to speak about, legally, any company or any restaurant is allowed to legally be 20% out, plus or minus whatever they state on the packet or on the menu, which is quite a bit. It is quite a bit. So if you think about something that's a 500 calorie meal, that potentially could be 400 calories or 600 calories either way, couldn't it? Which is a lot of it's a lot. Like if you're like you say, trying to be in a calorie deficit of, is it like 200 calories a day or something that they say to be in a...
Well, they say 500 calories is
a pound. Oh, okay. Then, it could be the difference between that. And I think also, it's very difficult then to count a calorie if it can be out by that much.
Yeah, 20% a big number at the end of the day. One study that I want to bring up, and it's been on Zoe a couple of times, is this almond study as well. So you've just said straight away the manufacturer or restaurant, etc., can be 20% out within whatever they state on the menu, etc. Now this study of almonds was, if you actually go and buy a food product, so whole almonds and ground almonds, they'll have the same energy density within it. Now anyone knows if you want to absorb anything, you want it to be broken up and ground up as much as possible, because that increases the amount of contact with the gastrointestinal tract that allows greater dissolution. Same with when you put anything in boiling water, you break it up, don't you, to make it dissolve quicker. So in reality, you're going to absorb more of the product that's ground up. But this study sort of backed that in terms of there was a 32% discrepancy at the end of the... Well, there was a couple of studies actually that I've just sort of amalgamated into one. There was one between whole peanuts, peanut butter and peanut oil. Peanut oil had the greatest absorption. Peanuts as a whole didn't. So straight away, even though it's got the same energy on the packet, you could have absorbed a different amount there. And then this whole almond study, at the end of the week, there was a 32% difference. So if you're 20% out from the restaurant, then 32% out. And if you think of the factors that can impair absorption, you've got stress, you've got other foods that you're eating it with. That's why we try and avoid certain medication. Exactly. So all these factors can limit how effective your body is of extracting that material. So then if you keep combining all these numbers, how far away from the true value are you? And then you're just ending up with a fictitious number. And then you've got an Apple tracker. Well, I'm not going to name, I've just named the brand, but I wasn't going to name a brand. But there's evidence out there that these aren't accurate. A lot of people have trouble where they've went to sleep for 8 hours and they woke up and they've only got 90 minutes of sleep, for example. They're not 100% accurate. I agree with using them to facilitate your lifestyle, but you shouldn't be dependent on it. So if your Apple Watch is burning 500 calories and you've at 2,500, in reality, you've only had a net of 2,000. Yeah. That could be out by hundreds of calories either way. Yeah. So that's why I don't personally calorie count. It's because there's just too many variables that need to line up for it to be effective.
I think that's true again, and I think that's one of the reasons why I don't no longer calorie count. But I think another point as well is that if you're calorie counting, a lot of the time, like 90% of the time, it's purely for aesthetic reasons. So the reason like behind that is because obviously if you're calorie counting, you're not really thinking about the actual composition of the food that you're eating. And I think that for me is the difference between when I used to calorie count and now, is that I now just focus purely on the quality of the food that I'm consuming. And I think a good example of that is that I always remember I started to like avocados maybe like 6 years ago, you know, when they were like a big trend, and I actually tried them. I was like, oh yeah, no, really like them. I remember my mum saying to me, oh, you can't have too many of them, like they're really high in calories. And I was like, oh yeah, they are. And then I'd swap that out for maybe like a packet of Wotsits, which were like 100 calories. Whereas now, like that's not going to happen because the calories that I'm getting from an avocado, I don't even think about the calories, but I'm also getting vitamin E. I'm getting healthy fats that are going to facilitate, you know, I'm getting fibre that are going to benefit my, you know, me internally, and then also my skin. But yeah, so that's the difference. And I think in society, it is a lot of the time is driven by
I was going to say, most
aesthetics.
Diets and a lot of trends go towards aesthetics.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, a lot of the people who are fronting these campaigns, or a lot of people who follow certain types of people, genetically will be in a better position than everyone else. So no matter what it is they do, something's going to happen. Yeah. And that's the look of the draw, really.
Yeah. And I think for me, the most important thing and the most important point to take out of this podcast is that it can create this negative relationship. And I think that's the most detrimental thing to our health goals, is that if you are focusing solely on calories, then you can miss out, like I've just said, like large amounts of food groups that are actually really beneficial for our health because they're too high in calories or I can't eat them. And then it does create a negative relationship with you.
It does.
You know, your mental and your physical health.
Well, you brought it up to me the other day that a lot of these, how do you put it, a lot of professionals tend to put a lot of weight on later on in life. And it's because they they deem themselves as being punished when they're having certain meals now. And then a lot of them do develop a lot of weight gain later on in life, when in reality, if they would have just adopted a good relationship in the beginning, because it's okay now, because I'm not saying Mo Salah or anyone does it, but they can offset a lot of the bad things in their diet through excessive work, because that's their job. There's going to come a point where he's not going to be running around the pitch when he's 45, 50, and then that relationship then reverses, and then you can't. There's the saying that you can't out-train a bad diet. Again, it's all aesthetically driven, because it shouldn't be about out-training anything. It should be about how can you improve all the other markers. But that's a big point. And you watch all these boxers and MMA fighters and they do all these weight cuts. It's okay now, but 20 years time, when they don't have the means to offset that as effectively, then that's when I think it becomes problematic. And
I think like even today I see in a post on Instagram where you see them all the time where they'll like compare two meals, and it's mostly comparing a McDonald's burger to the McDonald's salad. Where it'll say the McDonald's burger's got like, I think it's like 480 calories in, and the McDonald's salad's got like 1,200. But obviously I don't know what's in the McDonald's sauce, which is what on the salad, which gives it the high calorie content. But you know, at the end of the day, it's a McDonald's burger that's full of saturated fat. You know, what even is the burger made out of? Like, they say it's 100% beef, it probably isn't. Like, it's filled with like loads of different things. Like the burger bun, like we know that it's probably like full of chemicals. Whereas the salad, you know, okay, the sauce may be high in calories, but it's probably made from olive oil. I think it's probably got blue cheese in it because they tend to, don't they, sometimes, which obviously is a high calorie food, but it's still a whole food, you know, so it just creates a really poor relationship, and so you won't touch the salad, and then you'll eat like 3 McDonald's like Big Macs because I can have that because it's better than the salad, and actually in reality, no, it's not, but it's, you know, it's funny.
That's our sponsorship with McDonald's, isn't
it? And then also,
but I agree,
and it's even like with like 0 calorie drinks as well, you know, fizzy drinks, where they'll be full of sweeteners. We know that if you have a can of like sweetened beverage, I don't want to say any names now.
We've named every company that there is out there.
Your body will then anticipate sugar coming. So then you will then, studies have shown that you'll overeat. And so, okay, you're having a 0 calorie like drink, but then it causes you to eat more down the line because your body's waiting like for this sugar. And then as soon as it gets it, it just uses it or it doesn't use it, it stores it. So, there's a lot of things that you could go into.
But one of the things, a lot of people who are listening who calorie counting, they're saying, well, if it's so bad, what should I do going forward?
Yeah.
What I do personally is probably not going to be, or same with you now, because you've got to a point where your body can sort of tell you what it needs.
Yeah.
There is evidence out there. There's that child study where he had low vitamin D, etc. And then they put out, I don't know, it was cod liver oil, they put other supplements and other foods.
I think it was like oats and usual breakfast foods, didn't they?
I think it was in the early 1900s as well. And then they sort of left the kids, I think they were 7 to 8 years old. And the child who had sort of a vitamin D and bone disorder, he went towards the cod liver oil and consumed it without any...
drink like a pint of it or whatever it was.
And then they stopped, and then they redone a scan, DEXA scan, all these things, and found out that it had been corrected. Yeah. But that was through no persuasion, that was
crazy.
On their own accord.
That always gets me, that's the
But that's what we do. We listen to our bodies in a weird way, and it comes to a point where you do know. And if you ever watch people who are high in fitness as well, they'll be the same. A lot of them probably won't calorie count, but they'll have a certain set diet that they'll have, and they know if they increase certain things, the body will change. And that's what it is. The body will talk to you and it's hard to give that advice because there's nothing tangible, and that's what we like as humans. We like a tangible number. If you work towards this, it's going to work.
Yeah. But I think the thing that I would say, in my personal opinion as well, is that since I've changed my diet, since I now eat mainly whole foods and focus on the micronutrients as well as macronutrients, I don't feel as hungry as what I did. So when I was consuming maybe more ultra-processed foods and things that were low in calories but weren't really real foods, I was more hungry. And so I think it's to do with, it could be to do with your gut microbiome, because we know that certain bacteria help facilitate the production of GLP-1, which is one of the hormones which is involved in hunger in satiety. So it's all to do with that. And like you say, you again as well, my relationship with exercise has completely changed now. So that's helped me, because I don't look at them. I don't even have a watch anymore. Like you've never had one, have you? But I haven't used my watch.
I had the Whoop for a bit.
Yeah, but that was more for sleep, and it wasn't really. Yeah, but yeah, I haven't used it for like probably a year and a half, and so I just go in and I'll do whatever I feel like I want to do that day, and it's mainly something like yoga or Pilates or like weight training. And I do it because I enjoy it, and I know that it's like I feel really good after I've done it, not because I'm going in thinking, right, I've got half an hour, I need to burn as many calories as I can.
I think that's a good point, though, in terms of do something that's working for you and that's going to sustain, your commitment towards it.
Yeah, and I think counting calories is as good as what we want it to be, or like as easy as in or out,
I would love that to work.
In principle, it is a good theory, but it really doesn't work like that, and it's very hard to sustain it as well. If you're trying, I think it's different for me now, like I say, because I have a vague idea of how many calories is in something. So
Would you still think about food in terms of energy density, honestly, or do you think of it about...
I really don't think about them anymore, and I never ever thought that I'd get to the point where I didn't think about calories whatsoever. I just don't. Me and you, we have a very similar diet every day. We know what we like and we eat similar things, and it might sound boring, but I would suggest that anyone just find 3 meals that you really enjoy and just repeat them.
I think a lot of people will have that anyway.
Yeah, they probably will, but maybe just not.
Because it's really strict in terms of the health benefits that we have.
Yeah.
I think people might look at it differently.
Yeah, but I would say, we do that, and then, I have built up a baseline of muscle now, so my BMR is higher than what it was, so I'm able to, if on a day where I feel like, I really fancy something sweet, I'll usually tend to go for something like dark chocolate, because I really like dark chocolate, and obviously it has more benefits than, I actually can't eat milk chocolate because I'm lactose intolerant anyway, but
it does have more benefits than
milk
chocolate.
But yeah, and I don't feel guilty about doing that, because I know that most, like 90% of the time, like my body is being nourished in the correct way. I don't feel like I the need to be having sweet treats or treat myself, because I just, like, my body just doesn't ask me for it. And it's the weirdest thing, but it just doesn't.
But that was the only way I've got to relate to that is with protein. So in terms of, I used to be really particular about having X amount of protein. It used to be 200 plus grams a day.
Yeah.
And I need to do it at set intervals. That was the first thing you used to do when you went to the gym. And then it went to the point where as long as you consume it within the day, it's fine, but still hit that protein intake. And now I genuinely don't look at how much protein, because I've looked into it a bit more. For me, I don't really need the volumes that I was getting. I'm not an athlete. I work as a desk job, and that's the majority of the population. They don't need the levels, but it is uncomfortable doing this idea of being consciously unconscious. Yeah. It's hard to literally let it go in a sense. Yeah. But we're not. We're doing blood work. We're doing all these other things alongside it to make sure whatever we're doing is healthy. The odd time we will check weight. I mean, I checked it the other day as part of that health follow-up.
I don't even do that anymore.
Again, it's a non-specific marker of health. It is. Is it because you've lowered bone density or muscle mass, or is it because you've lowered fat and visceral? Again, everything needs to be used with a pinch of salt.
Yeah, and put into context as well.
Yeah, that's a big thing. Everything needs to be in context. But in my opinion is calorie counting's too inaccurate for me. I won't sort of go against anyone who does it and is having a lot of success from it. If it comforts people, again, you're only on the planet once. If it comforts you, do whatever it is. Yeah, and I think it's just again, like with all of these podcasts that we do, it's just educating yourself a little bit more. So being aware that a label can be 20% out, plus or minus whatever it says on it. So if you know that, you can sort of equate, like you can account for it, can't you? Or exactly, and then them labels, like we just said, account for everyone processing it in the exact same way. What is the chance of doing that? Yeah. And is calorie counting now more of a thing because of the introduction of ultra processed foods? I know it was around years ago, and calories come from the Atwater factors for anyone who wants to know, where it's 4 calories per gram of carbohydrates, protein, and 9 for fat. Yeah. But then even he and them back in the day found that
protein and carbs were like they fluctuated, didn't they?
Well, there was that, and also the calories from one food group fluctuated from another. So in terms of whole nuts, for example, that is different compared to other fats because we can't utilise it in the same way unless we fully break it down. Yeah. And these are the things you've got to bear in mind. It's not a one size fits all, which I would love it to be. I would love to say, I'm going to do this workout, it's going to be this, I can offset it with this, my health's going to be this. Yeah. But it's not.
I think, just to sort of summarise and like wrap it up, the best thing that I've done in my sort of health journey and fitness journey is stop counting calories. I think it was holding me back in ways that I didn't really realise until I stopped counting them. And it was mainly, in my fitness goals. So it was holding me back by doing different types of, training, because I didn't believe that I was burning enough calories. And it's just allowed me to focus more on what my body needs rather than
I think that's a big thing. If you stop counting calories, you should be focusing on what your body needs. There are people out there that will need to look at the energy content, and there are people who are delusional.
Yeah, of course.
Let's be honest. There are people who say,
you can go and eat, you can go and like have a whole litre of olive oil and you'll be fine. Like it doesn't work like that. But it's just about being mindful of things and eating a healthy, balanced diet, but focusing more on the complex of the food and what's actually in it, rather than the amount of calories that it states on a label.
That's a good point. It is. Yeah. Is this unbiased? Have we done it too biased?
I feel like, obviously I think that it's been quite unbiased in terms of like, I understand, like I've done it for over 10 years. I was counting calories, and at the time, like I thought that it was, good. And like you say, for some people it is beneficial. And if people find comfort in counting calories and they're getting results, then, that's a good thing. It's just, I think the most important point out of all of the podcasts, like I say, is just being mindful and just realising that your body's not just an engine where it goes in and goes out, and the fact that now we know it can be 20% out on, the amount of calories in a food. And really what we always advocate for is that we should be nourishing our body, so we should be focusing on the actual health benefits of foods rather than, well, am I going to put like weight on if it's too many calories, and so I should have a 0-calorie drink.
Yeah. So if people are wanting to move away from calorie counting, they need to shift what their goal is. Yeah. So it shouldn't be the weight on the scale. It should be the numbers on a blood test. It
Yeah,
should
and I
be the
think-
numbers on a scan. It
Yeah.
should be how you feel mentally, how you perform physically.
Yeah.
All these things need to be the new goal as opposed to, am I going to look good for the wedding?
Yeah.
And then, but there's other things actually before we stopped, is this idea of saving calories. And there's a lot of misinformation about, it's mainly giving people advice around how to use your calories in the week. And how do you put it?
So where they'll say you can have like maybe 1,200 calories from Monday to Friday, and then you can eat as many calories you want, or like maybe like 5,000 a day.
Them all up.
Yeah, they can have alcohol, and which we know is empty calories. Like, so they're not the same calorie as what you'd get from food.
So that's
as well.
So it's what we sort of touched upon, isn't it? A calorie is not just a calorie. It's got to be what's in that food. Yeah. But yeah, this idea that you can build up calories, save them, bank them. What do you think on that?
I haven't really looked into it. I think you did, didn't you, a while ago, where you were saying that.
What do you think of it anyway?
I mean,
as advice, would you ever give that advice out?
No, I wouldn't. And again, I think it's just creating a poor relationship. So if you're eating things during the week that you really enjoy, and it's feeding your body what it needs, and you're feeling good, you don't need to do that on the weekend. Like I say, if I feel like I want to have some chocolate, or I want a treat, like I will do that, but it's very few and far between, because I don't feel, my body just doesn't need it anymore. And I think that's what the biggest point to come out of that is. I think it's just this poor relationship to have with food, to feel like you're restricting yourself so much that you need on the weekend to go and eat, all the food that you've restricted.
Sort of restricted.
Yeah, and
I think it's got a good point in terms of, if you were going to eat poorly and higher amounts of food throughout the week, at least it mitigates that and offsets it. But this idea of, if you eat throughout the week at a lower calorie consumption or energy consumption, that at the weekend you can sort of let loose to an extent, and your body goes, well, it's okay, I'm going to wait until the weekend. It's not going to be like that. If excess energy comes into your body, we know that it's got to store it or get rid of it in certain ways. But other people think by reducing the energy consumption throughout the week, that it mitigates it, and that's not.
Yeah.
That's the science point of view, and then you've got the physiological and psychological point that you've just said.
Yeah.
There's quite a lot.
I know there is. Well.
But like we said, this is all our opinion, our advice, and shouldn't be used in substitute to seeing a healthcare professional. And it shouldn't be, if you are doing well on your things, do not come off it because we've said, oh, that's what we do. That's what works for us. Individualised approach. Again, we'll put anything below, as we always do. And it's always good to try and educate yourself on what you're doing. Don't just do it because everyone else is doing it. Don't be a sheep.
Yeah.
I think that's the best thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's your body, it's not theirs. So that's the best thing I would advise on.
And if you've made it to the end of the video, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for listening, and we will see you in the next one.